Emily stood at the kitchen sink, staring out the window at the soft drizzle falling over their quiet suburban street. The rhythmic tapping of rain against the glass matched the steady thrum of her thoughts, each drop echoing a feeling she couldn't quite name. Life had never been simple, and Mary and David had promised a kind of happiness she had always hoped for. But it came with challenges she hadn't anticipated. David had 2 children from a previous marriage: Sam, 17, quiet and careful, and Lily, 10, full of curiosity and laughter. Emily loved them both deeply, but sometimes late at night, when the house was silent and everyone else was asleep, she felt a lonely ache. It wasn't the kind of loneliness that could be solved with company or conversation. It was something subtler, a yearning for connection, for understanding, for a place where her heart felt truly seen. She dried her hands on a towel and walked to the living room, where the faint glow of the television cast shadows across the furniture. Sam was curled up on the couch, a book resting on his lap, though his eyes kept flicking toward the window as if he were waiting for someone or something. There was something in the way he sat, the quiet way he held himself, that tugged at Emily's heart in a way she couldn't explain. It was strange, she thought. He was her stepson, and yet, lately, she had begun noticing small things: the tilt of his head when he was thinking, the way his eyes seemed to search for answers beyond the walls of their home. There was a depth in him that she found both fascinating and quietly comforting. Emily shook her head, forcing herself to laugh softly. "It's just me imagining things again," she told herself. "I'm reading too much into ordinary moments." The truth was, Emily had spent most of her life giving care to others. She had been the dependable friend, the thoughtful daughter, the supportive partner. Yet somehow, here in her own home, surrounded by people she loved, she often felt invisible, like a shadow in her own story. Her emotions were quietly complicated. She loved her family fiercely, but there was a part of her heart that longed for more than the daily routines of home and work. There was a space inside her that wanted someone to truly understand her, to see past the smiles, the calm exterior, and the careful words she chose every day. As she walked past Sam, she caught his gaze for a fleeting moment. He looked up from his book, his green eyes catching the soft light from the lamp. He gave a small smile, the kind that was polite, almost shy, but something in it lingered longer than a normal smile should. Emily felt a shiver run down her spine, not from fear or confusion, but from recognition. "He sees me," she realized quietly, though not in the way she could explain. Just the acknowledgement of being noticed, of being understood on a level deeper than conversation, felt like a balm to the quiet ache she carried inside her. Emily moved to the window again and looked out at the wet streets, the reflections of streetlights shimmering in puddles. She thought about the past, about the dreams she had once held, the moments she had hoped for, and the uncertainties of the life she now led. There was comfort here, yes, in this blended family. But there was also longing for something unspoken, a connection that felt just out of reach. A soft creak from the staircase made her glance over, and Lily came bounding down, soaked from the rain outside, laughing as she shook the water from her hair. Emily smiled, warmth filling her chest. Lily's energy was contagious, a reminder that life had moments of joy hidden in the ordinary. She bent down to help Lily with her wet shoes, ruffling her daughter's hair. "You're going to track water all over the house," she teased gently. Lily giggled, looking up at Emily with those bright, trusting eyes. "I don't care." "The rain was fun." Emily laughed, a genuine laugh that seemed to shake loose the tightness in her chest. And yet, when Lily ran off to her room, the quiet returned. Sam was still there, sitting with his book, glancing toward Emily occasionally, but not saying anything. There was something unspoken in the air between them, a feeling neither fully understood but both sensed. That night, after David had come home from work and tucked Lily into bed, Emily found herself back in the living room. Sam had drifted off on the couch, book still in hand, and she watched him for a moment, feeling a tenderness that surprised her. She wondered what it must feel like to carry the weight of a world on your shoulders at 17. To navigate loss, change, and expectation. Emily had spent years learning how to comfort, how to guide, how to love carefully. And yet, in that quiet living room, She realized she also craved someone who could see her heart without words. It was a fleeting thought, almost impossible to hold on to, yet it lingered. Something about that night, the quiet, the storm outside, the unspoken bond forming in the small gestures and lingering glances, felt like the beginning of a story she hadn't anticipated. And deep down, Emily knew that life was about to shift in ways she couldn't yet imagine. One night, one moment, one small spark of understanding could change everything. If only she was brave enough to notice it. Little did Emily know. That night was just the start of something that would touch every corner of her heart and every part of her family's world next morning. The sunlight filtered softly through the kitchen blinds, painting golden stripes across the table. Emily sat there sipping her coffee, and her mind drifted back to the first days she had joined David's family. She remembered the quiet, awkward dinners, the cautious glances, and the sense that she was constantly learning how to fit into a world that had existed long before she arrived. Sam had been distant at first. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his words were measured, almost guarded. Like he was testing her, trying to figure out whether she belonged. Emily remembered the evenings she would find him in the living room, headphones on, scribbling in a notebook or flipping through his sketchpad. She never interrupted him, just quietly observed, feeling the subtle layers of his personality unfold like a book she had just been given the privilege to read. One evening, weeks after she moved in, Emily had found Sam on the porch, staring at the fading sunset. He hadn't noticed her at first, lost in thought, tracing shapes in the condensation on the glass railing. She had walked slowly, not wanting to startle him. "It's beautiful," she said softly. Sam had looked up, startled, then gave a small, shy smile. "Yeah, it is," he replied. No words were needed beyond that. Emily had stood there beside him, silently, as the sky turned from gold to pink to deep violet. That simple, shared moment had been the beginning of something quiet but meaningful, a trust forming in silence rather than in conversation. Emily's thoughts wandered further back, to the time she had read to Lily and Sam together. They would gather on the couch under a soft blanket, and Emily would read aloud from fantasy novels or adventure stories. Sam always listened intently, occasionally offering a comment or asking a question. And Emily had noticed how his eyes would light up, how he leaned a little closer, as if the stories themselves were drawing them together. There was a rhythm to those moments, a gentle harmony between them, unspoken yet profoundly real. And then there were the rainy days, like yesterday. Emily remembered one in particular, a spring afternoon when the rain had poured so heavily it trapped them all inside. Sam had reluctantly let her join him by the window, watching the raindrops race down the glass. They had talked about everything and nothing. Favorite movies, school struggles, childhood dreams, even the small worries that weighed on their hearts. Emily had listened, truly listened, without judgment, and Sam had opened up in ways he hadn't before. She remembered feeling a pang of emotion that she didn't yet understand, a tender sense of connection that seemed to thread them together across the years. Despite the closeness, there had always been a distant something invisible keeping them apart. Emily knew it wasn't just the fact that he was her stepson. It was the weight of loyalty, of boundaries, of life circumstances that had shaped them both. They cared deeply for each other, yes, but there were rules they both respected, lines they would never cross. And yet, even within those boundaries, there were moments of warmth that felt almost electric, not romantic in the forbidden sense, but full of emotion, of longing, of the quiet recognition that they had become essential parts of each other's lives. Emily thought about the way Sam laughed, low and quiet, when something genuinely amused him. It was different from Lily's bubbly giggles or David's hearty chuckle. It was intimate, in the purest sense, a sound that seemed to belong only to her ears. And when he was serious, when he shared something heavy from school or from his own reflections, Emily found herself wanting to reach out, to hold that moment with him, to offer comfort in a world that sometimes felt too harsh for a young man, so sensitive. She remembered one particularly difficult week for Sam. His grades were slipping, and he was frustrated with himself. Emily had stayed up late, helping him organize his schoolwork, quietly offering encouragement. They had stayed in the living room until the house was silent, surrounded by the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Sam had sighed, leaning back into the couch, exhaustion and relief mingling in his expression. "Thanks, Emily," he had said. Not as a stepmother, not as a teacher, but as someone he trusted. "I don't know what I'd do without you." That night, Emily had gone to bed with a mixture of pride AF. It was an ordinary Thursday afternoon, or so it seemed. Emily was tidying the living room, straightening books and folding blankets, when a sudden knock at the door startled her. She paused, unsure who it could be. David was at work. Lily was at school, and Sam was supposed to be at his part-time job at the local cafe. Curiosity tugged at her as she opened the door. And there stood Sam, drenched from the sudden spring rain. His backpack was slung over one shoulder, water dripping from the brim of his cap. "Hey, sorry," he said, his voice soft, a little hesitant. "I missed my bus. Could I wait here for a bit?" Emily stepped aside, motioning him in. "Of course," she said, though her chest fluttered with an unexpected warmth. Seeing him like this, vulnerable, real, and in need of shelter, triggered a strange mix of emotions she hadn't felt in weeks. She offered him a towel, and he hesitated before taking it, his eyes meeting hers for just a fraction longer than necessary. Once he had dried off, they settled into the living room. The rain continued to drum gently against the windows, creating a soft, rhythmic soundtrack that made the room feel cozy and safe. Emily offered him a cup of cocoa, and he accepted with a grateful smile. "I didn't mean to show up like this," Sam said quietly, twisting the handle of his mug. "It's just, everything's a bit hectic today." Emily nodded, sitting across from him, her gaze calm but attentive. "I understand," she replied. "Sometimes life has a way of throwing unexpected things at us. But it's okay. We'll handle it together." There was a pause, a quiet moment filled only by the sound of rain and the faint hum of the refrigerator. Emily noticed the subtle shift in Sam, the way he relaxed slightly, as if her words had lifted some invisible weight from his shoulders. And in that shift, something deep inside her stirred, a gentle recognition of the bond they had carefully nurtured over the months. "You know," Sam said after a moment, "I was thinking about that night a few weeks ago. The one with the storm. The rain kept us inside, and we just talked. I don't think I've ever felt that kind of calm with anyone before." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She remembered that night vividly. The quiet garden, the distant rumble of thunder, the way they had shared stories and fears without judgment. "I remember," she said softly. "It was a good night." "It was more than good," Sam admitted, a faint blush rising to his cheeks. "It was real. Like I could actually be myself without worrying about being judged or misunderstood." Emily smiled gently, feeling a surge of emotion she struggled to put into words. That night had been important for both of them, but she hadn't realized how deeply it had stayed with him. And now, in the present, it was as if fate had given them a small nudge of coincidence, maybe, or something more that allowed those feelings to resurface. For Emily, the realization was bittersweet. She cherished their connection, but was acutely aware of the boundaries that defined their relationship. Yet the intensity of the moment, the rain outside, the warmth inside, the shared vulnerability made it impossible to ignore the depth of their bond. "I'm glad you stayed," Emily said finally, her voice steady but soft. "It gives us a chance to reconnect, to remember what really matters." Sam looked down at his cocoa, then back up at her, his expression open and sincere. "I think I've been holding back more than I realized," he admitted. "Not because I don't trust you, but because I wasn't sure how to navigate it all." Emily reached out, placing a hand on the edge of the table, not touching him, but offering the comfort of presence. "You don't have to navigate it alone," she said. "We'll figure it out together. That's what family does, right?" He nodded slowly, relief and gratitude mixing in his eyes. It was in that shared understanding, that unspoken promise, that their hearts quietly acknowledged something significant. The connection they had built over time had survived distance, hesitation, and unspoken fears. And now in the present, it was stronger, ready to grow in ways they hadn't anticipated. For the next hour, they talked about school dreams and little moments that had been tucked away in the corners of their lives. They laughed softly at shared memories, paused in reflective silence at more serious thoughts. And through it all, the rain continued to fall outside. A gentle reminder that life's storms could sometimes bring unexpected clarity. As the sky began to clear, a soft golden light seeped through the windows, casting a warm glow over the room. Emily looked at Sam and realized something she hadn't acknowledged before. The connection they shared wasn't just a memory or a fleeting feeling. It was alive, vibrant, and quietly insisting that it mattered. Sam glanced toward the door, ready to leave, and paused. "Thanks, Emily," he said quietly, "for letting me stay, for listening, for everything." Emily smiled, her eyes misty. "Anytime, Sam. You're important, and don't ever forget that." As he walked out, the rain finally ceased, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent of spring. Emily closed the door and leaned against it for a moment, taking a deep breath. That afternoon had changed something. She realized something subtle but powerful. A small coincidence, a shared storm, a moment of vulnerability had reignited the emotional bond they had built over months of quiet connection. And though neither of them fully understood what the future held, one thing was clear. Sometimes life's gentle twists and turns could open the heart in ways nothing else could. And Emily felt deep inside that their story, careful, patient, and rooted in trust, was only just beginning. Little did they know that a single rainy afternoon would set the stage for a night that could change everything. The evening air was cool and crisp as Emily stepped onto the porch carrying a mug of tea. The sky above was painted in deep purples and soft oranges, the last light of day slipping quietly behind the horizon. The house was calm. David had gone to a late work meeting, and Lily was finishing a book in her room, lost in her own world. Only Sam remained downstairs, sitting by the window with a sketchpad on his lap. Emily hesitated for a moment, unsure if she should interrupt. But the gentle stillness of the scene drew her forward, and she found herself stepping closer. Sam looked up as she approached, and there was a flicker of surprise in his eyes, followed by a quiet relief. He set his pencil down and smiled softly. "Hey," Emily said, her voice gentle. "Mind if I sit?" "Not at all," he replied. Gesturing to the chair beside him, they sat in silence for a few moments. The kind of silence that isn't awkward but charged with the weight of unspoken words. Emily watched him carefully, noticing the subtle tension in his shoulders, the way his fingers tapped lightly against his sketchpad. She understood that he, too, was holding back feelings that had quietly grown over time. Emotions that neither of them had dared to name. "Do you ever think," Sam began hesitantly, "about what we're missing?" Emily tilted her head, sensing the depth behind the simple question. "Sometimes," she admitted softly, "but it's hard to put into words. There's a lot we feel but don't say, isn't there?" Sam nodded, looking down at the sketches he had been working on. "Yeah, I think about it all the time. Not in a bad way. It's just complicated. I don't want to do the wrong thing or make things awkward for anyone." Emily reached out, placing a hand near his sketchpad but not touching it, just close enough that he could feel her presence. "I know," she said. "I feel the same way. It's like there's something here between us, but we've been careful. And maybe that's why it feels so intense." They exchanged a quiet smile, one filled with understanding and mutual recognition. No words could fully capture the mixture of longing and hesitation they carried. But in that moment, it was enough to simply sit together. Acknowledging what had remained unspoken for so long, Emily remembered the countless times they had shared laughter over dinner, late-night conversations, and small moments of comfort that had slowly built a foundation of trust and connection. She thought of Sam's quiet kindness, the way he always noticed her moods, and the way he instinctively offered support without needing to be asked. And she realized that her feelings for him weren't just about the present. They were the culmination of months of shared moments, of a bond that had quietly grown into something profound. Sam, meanwhile, felt the same tug at his heart. He had admired Emily from the beginning, not as a replacement for the mother he had lost, nor as a casual caretaker, but as someone extraordinary. Someone who saw him clearly, who accepted him without judgment. Every small act of understanding, every conversation that stretched into the quiet night, had created an emotional closeness that he could no longer ignore. Yet neither of them spoke these thoughts aloud. The risk of expressing what they truly felt was too high. The lines of family and respect had always guided their choices. So they sat, sharing the warmth of the room and the quiet company of each other's presence. Each word carefully measured, each gesture intentional but subtle. "Sometimes I wish," Sam said softly, breaking the silence, "that we could just be honest about everything we feel, about the little things we don't say out loud." Emily's heart ached at his words. She wanted to tell him exactly what she felt, to reassure him that she had been feeling the same longing, the same curiosity about the unspoken connection between them. But she knew the timing wasn't right, that the truth had to wait, nurtured carefully, until it could be expressed without fear or confusion. Instead, she simply nodded. "I know, and one day, maybe we will. For now, I thee." Tea was a quiet Saturday morning, the kind where the sun streamed lazily through the windows, and the world outside seemed to move in slow, measured steps. Emily was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when she heard the familiar sound of Sam's footsteps on the stairs. He appeared, looking a little nervous, his backpack slung over one shoulder as if he had been rushing somewhere but had paused midway. "Hey," Emily said warmly, putting down the spatula. "You're up early." "Yeah," Sam replied, his voice unusually quiet. He hesitated for a moment, glancing around the kitchen as if searching for words. "Can we talk?" Emily nodded, motioning for him to sit at the small kitchen table. There was an unspoken tension in the air, a sense that something important was about to be shared. Emily's heart beat a little faster, though she told herself to stay calm. She had learned over months of careful observation and quiet understanding that some moments were meant to unfold slowly, and this felt like one of them. Sam took a deep breath and met her gaze. "I've been thinking a lot about everything, about the family, about how we fit together, about you." His hands fiddled with the edge of the tablecloth, betraying the nervousness he tried to hide. Emily remained quiet, giving him the space to continue. She knew this was his moment, and she didn't want to interrupt. "I know things are complicated," Sam said finally, his green eyes steady but earnest. "I know there are boundaries, and I've respected them. But I can't keep ignoring how much you mean to me. Not just as a stepmom or as someone who cares for me, but as someone I really look up to, someone I trust more than anyone else. And I guess what I'm trying to say is that it matters to me how much you've been here for me, how much you've helped me feel safe and understood. And I needed to say it. I needed you to know." Emily's chest tightened, and for a moment she felt speechless. There was a lump in her throat, not from sadness, but from the intensity of emotion she felt. The validation of feelings she had tried to name for herself but had never fully voiced. She reached out, placing her hand gently over his. Not to bridge any line of impropriety, but simply to offer comfort and acknowledgement. "Sam," she said softly, I feel the same way. I've felt it for a while now, the connection between us. The way you trust me, the way you've allowed me to be part of your world. It's important to me too. More than I realized." Sam's eyes widened slightly, and a small, relieved smile crossed his face. The tension that had been there since morning seemed to ease, replaced by the quiet glow of understanding. They didn't need to define it, didn't need to label it with words that could complicate things. They simply recognized that the bond between them was real, meaningful, and deep. For a moment, they sat in silence, letting the weight of unspoken truths finally settle. It was a quiet revelation, a turning point in their relationship that didn't require grand gestures or dramatic confessions. It was the kind of honesty that could only grow out of months of patience, care, and shared experience. "You've changed things for me," Sam said finally, his voice quieter now, tinged with gratitude. "You've made it easier to face things. School, life, everything. I don't know what I'd do without you." Emily felt tears prick at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the beauty of the moment. "You don't have to face anything alone, Sam," she said, "and you never will. That's what family does. That's what trust and care look like." It wasn't romance in the typical sense, not the kind that involves crossing boundaries or breaking rules. But it was emotional intimacy at its purest form. It was love in the sense of deep admiration, connection, and mutual respect. It was the kind of bond that could shape lives quietly, steadily, without fanfare, without fear. And without confusion. The turning point was subtle but undeniable. Sam leaned back slightly, exhaling as if a weight had been lifted. Emily smiled, a soft, tender smile that spoke volumes. They had finally spoken the truths they had carried quietly for so long, and in doing so, had taken a step toward a future where their bond could grow openly, honestly, and safely. And then, as if on cue, Lily's cheerful voice called from the top of the stairs. "Mom, Sam, breakfast is ready." The ordinary moment grounded them, a reminder that life continued even amid emotional revelations. Emily and Sam shared a glance, a silent acknowledgement that what had passed between them that morning mattered, that it had changed the way they would see each other from now on. Sam rose to help set the table, and Emily caught his eye, seeing in it a mixture of relief, respect, and quiet affection. They didn't need to rush anything, didn't need to force their feelings into words they weren't ready to say aloud. For now, it was enough that they had shared their hearts, recognized their bond, and stepped into a new chapter of understanding. By the time David walked in for breakfast, the kitchen was filled with warmth, laughter, and the comforting aroma of pancakes. Everything seemed brighter, lighter, as if the emotional turning point that had occurred quietly between Emily and Sam had cast a gentle glow over the whole family. Emily watched him pour syrup over the pancakes and felt a subtle, undeniable joy. The moment had arrived not with drama or conflict, but with truth, trust, and emotional honesty. The turning point wasn't about declaration or labels. It was about recognition. Recognition of care. Recognition of love. Recognition of the quiet, steadfast bond that had grown stronger every day, patiently and safely, until it could finally be acknowledged. And in that acknowledgement, both Emily and Sam knew that life, with all its challenges, had given them a gift of connection worth protecting, cherishing, and nurturing no matter what the future held. The weekend arrived with a soft golden light that filled the house with warmth. Emily moved quietly through the rooms, tidying, humming softly to herself, her heart still carrying the gentle glow from the conversation she had shared with Sam. Something had shifted between them, something subtle yet undeniably powerful. The bond they had built over months of quiet understanding now carried a new layer, acknowledgement. Not a declaration of forbidden love, but a recognition of the deep, unshakable connection that had grown between them. Sam appeared in the doorway, a tentative smile on his face. "Morning," he said softly, still a little hesitant, still carrying that quiet, thoughtful energy she had come to recognize. "Good morning," Emily replied, returning the smile. There was no awkwardness between them now, only comfort, a sense of shared understanding that made even ordinary moments feel significant. They moved through the morning together, preparing breakfast, tidying the kitchen, and laughing over small, everyday mishaps, pancakes that flipped wrong, spilled coffee, mismatched socks. Lily's bright energy filled the house, running circles around them and adding to the sense of warmth. It was ordinary life, simple and full of small joys, yet beneath it all lay the extraordinary, a family united, hearts aligned, and bonds strengthened through patience, honesty, and care. After breakfast, David suggested a family walk in the nearby park, and they all agreed. The spring air was fresh and cool, carrying the scents of blooming flowers and freshly cut grass. The children ran ahead, their laughter echoing through the trees while Emily and Sam walked side by side, not speaking at first, simply enjoying the quiet company. Finally, Sam broke the silence. "Kuno," he said softly, "I think I understand now. Everything we've gone through, all the times we've talked, all the quiet moments was like we were preparing for this, for a time when we could just be honest and still be okay." Emily looked at him, her eyes reflecting the sunlight filtering through the leaves. "Yes," she said gently. "And the important part is that we never rushed it. We respected each other, respected our family. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it lasting." He nodded, a sense of relief and gratitude softening his expression. "I guess that's what family is supposed to feel like? Supportive, safe, honest?" Emily smiled, feeling the weight of months of care, patience, and understanding lift slightly, replaced by quiet joy. "Exactly. And now we know we can trust each other through everything. That's more important than anything else." They continued walking, the conversation flowing easily, naturally. The day stretched before them, unhurried and bright, each moment reinforcing what they already knew. Life was fragile, sometimes complicated. But love, grounded in respect, trust, and understanding, could endure anything. By the time they returned home, the sun was dipping low in the sky, casting long shadows across the front yard. Emily paused on the porch, watching Sam join Lily and David in playful antics on the lawn. She felt a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude. The unspoken truths, the emotional hurdles, and the quiet patience had all led to this. A family fully present in each other's lives. Hearts connected in ways both visible and invisible. That evening, after dinner, they gathered in the living room. The soft hum of conversation, the gentle warmth of the lamps, and the lingering scent of baked bread created a sense of intimacy and peace. Emily glanced at Sam, noticing the calm confidence in his posture, the ease in his expressions. He met her gaze, and for a moment they shared a look that carried volumes, understanding, gratitude, and the unshakable knowledge that the bond they had forged would endure. "Thank you," Sam said quietly, not as a stepson to a stepmother, but as a person speaking to another who had become indispensable in his life. "For everything. For listening. For caring." Emily's eyes glistened. "Always, Sam. Always. That will never change." It wasn't about dramatic gestures or grand declarations. The love and connection between them were quiet, steadfast, and deeply rooted. It was about being present, about holding space for one another, about choosing honesty and respect over fear or hesitation. That was the kind of love that lasted, the kind that shaped lives without shouting its presence. It's the kind that could survive storms and emerge stronger as night fell. The family gathered near the window, watching the stars begin to appear. Emily felt a profound sense of peace, knowing that the unspoken truths, the patient waiting, and the careful nurturing of their bond had brought them here together, whole and ready for whatever the future might hold. In that quiet, ordinary moment, she realized something essential. Life's most meaningful connections often grow slowly, carefully, and patiently. They are built not in dramatic moments, but in the countless small gestures of care. The shared laughter, the gentle conversations, and the unwavering trust. And Emily knew, as she watched Sam laugh softly with David and Lily, that they had arrived at something rare and beautiful. Not just love, not just family, but a connection that was steadfast, nurturing, and wholly life-affirming. The night settled around the house, calm and tender. Emily stood at the window one last time, taking a deep breath of the cool evening air. Her heart felt full, her mind at peace. They had faced hesitation, longing, and unspoken truths, and now they had reached a place of understanding, hope, and quiet joy. It was a resolution not born of drama, conflict, or revelation, but of patience, trust, and care. And in that resolution, Emily knew with certainty life had given them a gift. and they would cherish it forever. Some stories change everything not in a single moment, but through a lifetime of quiet, heartfelt moments. This was one of those stories.